I'm Natalia Loback, and this is Change Course. Change is the destination. I often hear the terminology, and I'm sure that you do as well, that change is a process. And while the engineers and industrialists out there would like us to believe that that is the case, when we look at complex adaptive systems, they are always in a state of change. Homeostasis is by definition steady state. While from the outside that system looks static, what is actually happening on the inside is a constant state of flow. So change as a process doesn't really fit. There are processes happening inside that system all of the time. And the system is always changing. So, change is not a process. Change is the destination. When you want to change something in an organization, a community, a system, and let's think this through using an example of implementing a new way of working. I've done this a lot with the implementation of IT systems in organizations, so moving an entire organizational value chain into a cloud system where many processes become automated and the roles of each of your individual people in that organization and structure actually go through quite a significant amount of change. But if we look at that change as a process, what happens is often, and we should expect this, that because of homeostasis, the system will seek to return to homeostasis no matter what you do to it. So if you start introducing that change process, you are always going to have the pull of the resistance of the system itself. Homeostasis, by its nature, seeks to reinstate itself after some nudges, some interventions, some introduced changes. Why? Because homeostasis is the place at which the system is using its energy most efficiently. So, of course, the system is going to seek to return to homeostasis every time. That's why it's important to look at change as the destination. The change that you're making, the change that you're seeking to make is a result. It is the result of setting a new homeostasis. And of course, how we get to the new homeostasis, how we go to that destination, the process, the journey, all of that. It's not just one process, it's many different processes. It's not just one journey, it's many different journeys. When you're looking at that system, then you're looking for those aggregate nodes of self-organization. You're looking at individuals as well, and you're looking at that system as a whole. So if you seek change, what you're actually doing is you're choosing that destination and you're charting your course towards it. Homeostasis is also why incremental change, while it can be a very long process, actually works quite well because of the adaptive nature of the system. So if we introduce something like nudge theory, or we introduce something like small tweaks to an organizational process or system, what you see is a period of adjustment, of slightly higher energy, of adaptation of that system, and then absorption. And what happens is that the system will return to steady state with that small tweak, that small change that's been introduced. So small incremental changes over a long period of time don't upset the system as much as a big change. The reason why change is so hard and the reason why people get so frustrated with change is because by the nature of the world that we live in, valuable change and the change that we often have to make because of things like our rapidly changing environment, because of things like the structures and the systems in our organizations, because of things like value production, efficiency, we actually have to make quite large changes. And sometimes just by the nature of the change that we're seeking to make, the introduction of a large cloud IT system, a digital transformation, is by its nature a very large change. And these types of changes cannot really be done incrementally. The reason why it's so hard is because you are seeking to set a new homeostasis. You are making so many changes to that organizational system that as it seeks to preserve itself, as it seeks to return to homeostasis, as it seeks to protect itself through adaptation, you're actually running into more places of threat and resistance and difficulty. And once you've figured out how to actually make that change sustainable and stick, what are the bounds within the system that you're working with to achieve and create that new level of homeostasis, it can be quite disruptive and difficult to do. If you don't get that combination quite right, the organization slips back into the old ways of being. This is actually what we should expect to happen. Returning to the old way of doing things after a change has been introduced is an adaptive response. We should expect it. We shouldn't be disappointed. We shouldn't shame people or, look at it negatively. It's actually a normal part of system change, and it's a normal part of an adaptive system. So if you want to actually make change stick, you want a new level of homeostasis for that system, you actually have to change components of the system itself. I'm going to let that sink in a little. You have to change the components of the system itself. This is why change is so difficult. If we look at change of something as a process, we miss all of that context. We miss all of the pieces of the system, and we think that if we just push change through a linear path, that it will stick. But so many of us have experienced this going awry. So many of us have experienced this approach as change failure. So, homeostasis. Change is not the process. It's the destination. It's a new homeostasis, and it is a system with different component parts. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I invite you to like, share, rate, and subscribe because it helps others find us. You can find our show notes on our website at www.charthouse.ca, where each episode has a page under the Change Course podcast. So anything that I referenced in today's episode will be posted there so you can find it. While you're visiting us, sign up for the Change Navigator newsletter. You'll get a monthly dispatch of all things change, what we're working on, and our latest research. Our music is Levity by Emily Klassen. Change Course is available wherever you listen to podcasts. We also have an accessible version on YouTube with fully edited captions. You can find the link to our YouTube channel in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and remember, it's never too late to change course.